Elise stood in the heart of her walk-in closet, the air heavy with the scent of expensive perfume and the hushed secrets of silk and lace. The walls, lined with meticulously organized garments, told a story of a life curated with precision and grace. Each dress, each piece of lingerie, was a chapter in the narrative of her success, a tapestry woven from threads of ambition, elegance, and the subtle art of self-presentation. The city outside her penthouse windows thrummed with a pulsating energy that seemed a distant echo in the sanctity of her private retreat. Skyscrapers reached for the heavens, their glass facades reflecting the setting sun in a riotous display of color that belied the orderly calm of Elise's world. Tonight was a departure from her usual routine. A date arranged through an exclusive dating app promised a taste of the unknown. The prospect both exhilarated and unnerved her, for Elise was a woman accustomed to control, to knowing the rules of the game she played so well. Yet, as she sifted through the hangers, each garment whispering promises of allure and mystery, her hand paused, the self-assured grip faltering. A rare bout of indecision crept over her, casting a shadow across her usually clear-eyed vision. The dresses, vibrant and varied as they were, seemed to blend into one another, their voices a cacophony that drowned out her own. It was in this moment of quiet vulnerability that the door to her closet swung open, the sound a sharp contrast to the soft rustle of fabric. Elise turned, her heart skipping a beat at the sight of Derek, her tall and athletic stepson, standing at the threshold. His presence was an unexpected intrusion into her sanctuary, his eyes wide with surprise as they took in the scene before him. "Mom, I didn't realize you were in here," Derek stammered, the flush of embarrassment creeping up his neck. Elise, quick to recover her composure, offered a small, reassuring smile. "It's all right, Derek. What brings you to my closet?" He shuffled his feet, his gaze flicking away from the intimate array of lingerie that lay in plain view. I wanted to talk to you about something, but it can wait if you're busy." Elise studied him for a moment, her maternal instincts warring with the stirrings of a different kind of awareness. Derek had grown into a man, his youthful exuberance tempered by the quiet confidence that comes with age. In his eyes, she saw not the boy who had once played pranks on her, but a man whose gaze held a new, unsettling depth. "No, stay," she heard herself say, the words surprising her as much as they did him. "Perhaps you can help me decide what to wear tonight." Derek's eyebrows lifted in surprise, but he nodded, stepping further into the room. The air seemed to crackle with an electric charge as he approached, his eyes scanning the array of clothing with a curiosity that bordered on reverence. They began the delicate dance of selection, Elise modeling each dress as Derek offered his opinions. His insights were thoughtful, his compliments genuine, and with each piece she tried on, the dynamic between them shifted subtly. The stepmother-stepson relationship that had defined their interactions for years seemed to dissolve, replaced by a shared camaraderie that was both exhilarating and disconcerting. As the selection narrowed, Derek's gaze grew more intent, his words more measured. Elise found herself drawn to his fresh perspective, allowing herself to be guided by his choices. When she donned the crimson lingerie set, a daring selection that seemed to awaken something dormant within her, the atmosphere in the room became charged with an unspoken tension. The bra, a delicate lattice of lace and silk, cradled her breasts with an artist's precision, while the thong lay against her skin, a tantalizing promise of secrets yet to be revealed. The sheer robe, dark as a starless night, completed the ensemble, its hem grazing the tops of her thighs with a whisper of silk. Elise turned to face Derek, her breath hitching as she saw the raw hunger in his eyes. It was a look she had not seen directed at her in years, a look that spoke of desire and the thrill of the taboo. For a moment, the world outside her closet ceased to exist, the hum of the city fading into silence as they stood there, caught in the gravity of their shared gaze. "You look incredible," Derek finally said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to resonate in the space between them. Elise smiled, a flush of warmth spreading through her body. "Thank you, Derek. Your help has been invaluable." With a grace born of years in the public eye, Elise stepped out of her closet, the sheer robe billowing behind her like the wings of a dark angel. The evening lay before her, a canvas of possibilities that both thrilled and terrified her. As she left the penthouse, the door closing with a soft click behind her, Elise felt as though she was crossing a threshold not just of space, but of time. The woman who descended in the elevator, whose reflection in the polished metal walls was a portrait of confidence and anticipation, was not the same woman who had stood amidst her dresses and lingerie, searching for an answer in the folds of silk and lace. The night awaited her, a mystery wrapped in the seductive allure of the unknown, and with each step she took, Elise embraced the transformation, her heart beating in time with the city's rhythm, a symphony of desire and discovery. Elise's heels clicked rhythmically against the concrete sidewalk, a staccato counterpoint to the city's symphony of life. The air was crisp, carrying with it the mingled scents of street food, car exhaust, and the faintest hint of the floral perfume she had chosen for the evening. Around her the city pulsed, neon signs flickering to life, the distant hum of traffic, the occasional laughter or snippet of conversation as people passed by, each absorbed in their own narratives. She hailed a taxi, the yellow cab pulling up to the curb with a hiss of brakes. As she slid into the back seat, the driver glanced at her in the rearview mirror, a flicker of appreciation crossing his features before he focused on the road ahead. Elise gave him the address of the restaurant, a place renowned for its discreet service and the quality of its cuisine, a haven for those who sought privacy as much as they sought fine dining. The ride was a blur of lights and shadows, the cityscape outside her window a living mosaic of urban life. Elise's thoughts, however, were not on the view, but rather on the events that had unfolded in her closet. The memory of Derek's gaze upon her, the undeniable heat that had passed between them, sent a shiver of anticipation down her spine. She had always maintained a clear boundary between her role as a stepmother and the more complex emotions that could arise within a blended family. But tonight, those lines had blurred, and Elise found herself adrift in uncharted waters. The realization both exhilarated and alarmed her. She was a woman who prided herself on her self-control, yet here she was, her mind awash with thoughts that bordered on the scandalous. The taxi pulled up to the restaurant, and Elise stepped out onto the curb, the cool evening air a stark contrast to the warmth of the cab's interior. She paid the driver, her fingers brushing against the crisp bills, and made her way to the entrance. The restaurant's facade was understated, the sign above the door a simple, elegant script that promised an experience beyond the ordinary. Inside, the ambience was a perfect balance of sophistication and comfort. Low lighting cast a golden glow over the patrons, the murmur of conversation blending with the soft strains of a jazz quartet in the corner. The maitre d' greeted Elise with a polite nod, guiding her to a secluded table near the back, a spot that afforded a measure of privacy while still allowing her to observe the ebb and flow of the room. As she waited for her date to arrive, Elise allowed herself to sink into the plush velvet of the banquette, her fingers tracing the delicate stem of the wineglass before her. She ordered a glass of the house's finest red, the rich, full-bodied flavor a welcome distraction from the tumult of her thoughts. The minutes stretched on, each tick of the clock a subtle increase in her anticipation. Elise was not prone to nervousness, but there was an undeniable flutter in her stomach as she wondered who her mystery date might be. The dating app had promised someone compatible with her tastes and lifestyle, a man of culture and refinement. Yet, as the moments passed, she found her mind wandering back to Derek, to the unexpected connection they had shared. When her date finally arrived, Elise looked up, her eyes meeting those of the man who stood beside her table. For a moment, she thought she must be mistaken, that the shadows playing across his features were a trick of the light. But no, there was no denying the identity of the person who had come to join her. Derek? The name escaped her lips in a whisper, a question and a statement all at once. He smiled, a slow, knowing curve of his lips that sent a jolt of recognition through her. Hello, Elise. I hope you don't mind the surprise. Mind? The word seemed laughable in that moment. Every cell in her body was acutely aware of his presence, the sheer audacity of his appearance at her table both shocking and oddly thrilling. Derek was not just her stepson. He was a man who had seen her in a moment of vulnerability, who had chosen the very garments that now lay against her skin. I'm not sure what to say," Elise admitted, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions that churned within her. "Say you'll give this evening a chance," Derek replied, his tone earnest as he took the seat across from her. "I know it's unconventional, but I couldn't pass up the opportunity to spend time with you outside of our usual context." Unconventional was an understatement, but Elise found herself intrigued by the proposition. There was a sincerity in Derek's eyes that she had not seen before, a depth to his character that begged to be explored. And so, with a nod of acquiescence, she raised her glass in a silent toast to the night ahead. The evening unfolded in a series of revelations, each course of their meal accompanied by stories and confessions that peeled back layers of their respective lives. Derek spoke of his aspirations and the challenges he faced in forging his own path independent of his father's expectations. Elise, in turn, shared anecdotes from her career and the lessons she had learned about love, loss, and the power of resilience. As they talked, the walls that had once defined their relationship crumbled bit by bit. The stepmother and stepson dynamic that had seemed so insurmountable earlier that day was replaced by a burgeoning connection that was both exhilarating and fraught with risk. Elise found herself laughing at Derek's jokes, her heart skipping a beat each time their eyes met across the table. The restaurant, once a bustling hub of activity, faded into the background as the world outside contracted to the space occupied by the two of them. The food, expertly prepared and artfully presented, was a delight to the senses, but it paled in comparison to the intoxicating effect of Derek's undivided attention. As the evening drew to a close, Derek reached across the table, his hand covering hers in a gesture that was both tender and bold. "Elise, I have to be honest with you. My feelings for you have grown beyond the bounds of our family connection. I've tried to ignore them to convince myself that they're inappropriate, but I can't deny them any longer." Elise's breath caught in her throat, the weight of his words settling upon her like a mantle. She knew she should pull away, to reassert the boundaries that had been so carelessly eroded over the course of the evening. Yet, as she looked into Derek's eyes, she found herself paralyzed by a potent cocktail of emotions, surprise, confusion, and an undeniable spark of desire that refused to be extinguished. "Derek, He cut her off with a gentle squeeze of her hand. "You don't have to say anything now. I just wanted you to know how I feel. The rest we can figure out together." The check was paid, a discreet exchange of currency that signaled the end of their time in the restaurant. Derek stood, offering his arm to Elise in a chivalrous gesture that seemed both anachronistic and utterly appropriate given the circumstances. She accepted, her fingers curling around the solid warmth of his bicep as they made their way to the exit. Outside, the city lights twinkled like a constellation of earthly stars, their glow a stark contrast to the tumultuous emotions that raged within Elise. A sleek black limousine awaited them at the curb, its presence an unexpected twist in an evening that had been full of surprises. Derek opened the door for her, a playful smile tugging at the corners of his mouth as he gestured for her to step inside. "I thought we could continue our evening in style," he said, his voice low and inviting. With a sense of inevitability, Elise found herself nodding her assent, her heart pounding in her chest as she contemplated the journey that lay ahead. The limousine's interior was a cocoon of luxury, the leather seats cool against her skin, the tinted windows offering a welcome sense of seclusion from the outside world. As the limousine pulled away from the curb, Elise settled back against the seat, her gaze locked with Derek's. The cityscape slid past them, a blur of motion and light that mirrored the whirlwind of her thoughts. She knew that the decision to step into the limousine had irrevocably altered the course of her life, setting her on a path that was riddled with uncertainty, and yet filled with the promise of discovery. The night was still young, and the journey back to their apartment building loomed before them, a voyage of both distance and emotion. With each mile that passed, the tension between them grew, the air charged with the electric hum of possibility. Elise's heart raced as she considered the ramifications of her actions. She was playing a dangerous game, one where the stakes were high and the outcome uncertain. But as Derek's hand found hers, his fingers intertwining with her own, she realized that she was no longer content to watch life from the sidelines. Tonight, she would embrace the unknown, allowing herself to be swept away by the current of desire that had ignited in the most unexpected of ways. Tonight, Elise would dance on the edge of forbidden love, and the music that played was a siren song that promised both ecstasy and the sweet agony of the unknown. The limousine glided through the city streets, a sleek shadow against the backdrop of the urban landscape. Inside, Elise and Derek were encapsulated in a world unto themselves, the outside world reduced to a kaleidoscope of colors and sounds that passed by in a blur. The luxury of the vehicle was palpable: rich leather seats, polished wood paneling, and the subtle scent of wealth and privilege that clung to the air. Derek poured them each a glass of champagne, the effervescent liquid catching the light as he handed one to Elise. Their fingers brushed during the exchange, a fleeting contact that sent ripples of awareness through them both. Elise took a sip, the crisp taste of the champagne mingling with the warmth of the wine she had consumed at the restaurant, lending her a pleasant buoyancy that made the situation feel both surreal and utterly compelling. "Two unexpected turns," Derek proposed, raising his glass in a toast. Elise met his gaze, her own toast a silent affirmation of the night's adventures. The clink of their glasses was a soft note in the symphony of their shared experience, a moment of acknowledgement that they were stepping into uncharted territory together. As the limousine navigated the city's labyrinthine streets, Elise felt the last vestiges of her reservations melting away. The evening had taken on a life of its own, propelling her forward on a tide of emotion and sensation that she was powerless to resist. Derek's presence was both a comfort and a provocation, his every word and gesture a testament to the complexity of his character. They spoke of trivial things: favorite movies, cherished childhood memories, dreams for the future, each revelation drawing them closer, each shared laugh a bridge over the chasm of their familial connection. And yet, beneath the surface of their conversation, there lurked a deeper current, an undercurrent of desire that hummed in the space between them. Derek's hand found Elise's once more, his thumb tracing slow, deliberate circles on the back of her hand. The contact was electric, a spark that ignited a fire within her. Elise's breath caught in her throat, her body responding to his touch with an intensity that left her both exhilarated and slightly unnerved. She turned to face him, her eyes locking onto his in a silent exchange of need and longing. In the dim light of the limousine, Derek's features were cast in shadows and highlights, lending him an air of mystery that only heightened his appeal. "Elise," he murmured, his voice a low thrum that resonated in the depths of her being. "I've wanted this for so long." Before she could reply, Derek leaned in, his lips capturing hers in a kiss that was both a question and a declaration. It was a kiss that spoke of pent-up desires and the sweet agony of the forbidden, a kiss that blurred the lines of propriety and replaced them with the pure, unadulterated truth of their attraction. Elise's response was instantaneous and visceral. Her hands came up to frame Derek's face, her fingers threading through his hair as she returned his kiss with a fervor that matched his own. The world outside the limousine ceased to exist, the sounds of traffic and city life fading into nothingness as they lost themselves in the moment. Their bodies drew closer, the heat between them intensifying with every passing second. Elise was acutely aware of the lingerie that Derek had chosen for her, the silken fabrics a tantalizing barrier between her skin and his. The robe she wore did little to mask the contours of her form, and she could feel Derek's appreciation in the way his hands roamed over her, exploring the curves and valleys of her body with a reverence that took her breath away. The limousine continued its journey, the smooth ride a counterpoint to the tumult of their passion. Inside the vehicle, time seemed to stretch and warp, each minute filled with an eternity of sensation. Elise felt as though she was suspended in a dream, a world where the usual rules did not apply, and where she was free to indulge in the desires that she had so carefully suppressed for years. Eventually, the limousine began to slow, the driver navigating the vehicle into the underground parking garage of their apartment building. The transition from the chaos of the city to the quiet confines of their home was a jarring one, a reminder of the reality that awaited them beyond the sanctuary of the limousine. Derek pulled away gently, his eyes searching Elise's for any sign of hesitation or regret. But all he saw there was a reflection of his own desire, a mirror of the need that pulsed through his veins like a drug. "Are you ready?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Elise nodded, her own voice lost in the maelstrom of her emotions. She was ready to embrace the uncertainty of the path that lay before them, ready to explore the depths of the connection that they had unwittingly forged. Together they stepped out of the limousine, their hands still entwined as they made their way to the elevator that would take them to their apartment. The ascent was a silent interlude, a moment of quiet anticipation that belied the storm of passion that had consumed them only moments before. As they entered the apartment, the familiar surroundings took on a new significance. This was their shared space, a place where the boundaries of their relationship had been firmly established. Until now. With a flick of a switch, the room was bathed in a soft, ambient light that cast a warm glow over the contemporary furnishings and tasteful artwork that adorned the walls. Derek led Elise to the living area, his hand guiding her to the plush sofa that offered a view of the city skyline. The lights outside twinkled like distant stars, a silent witness to the drama that was about to unfold. Elise sank into the cushions, her body humming with a mixture of nerves and excitement. Derek joined her, his gaze never leaving hers as he reached out to trace the line of her jaw with the back of his hand. The tenderness of the gesture made her heart ache, the reality of their situation settling over her like a bittersweet shroud. "This is really happening, isn't it?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the sound of her own heartbeat. "Yes," Derek replied, his tone resolute. "It is." With that simple affirmation, the last of Elise's defenses crumbled. She surrendered to the moment, to the man who had so deftly woven himself into the fabric of her being. The night was theirs, a canvas upon which they could paint their desires with bold, unapologetic strokes. As they gave themselves over to the passion that had been building since the moment they first laid eyes on each other in the sanctuary of her walk-in closet, Elise knew that there was no turning back. The path they had chosen was fraught with peril, but it was also illuminated by the incandescent glow of a love that refused to be bound by convention or societal expectation. Tonight, they would dance on the edge of the abyss, their bodies entwined, their hearts beating in unison. And when the morning came, they would face the consequences of their actions, whatever they may be. But for now, in the quiet stillness of the apartment, there was only the two of them, Elise and Derek, bound by the threads of a forbidden love that promised to change their lives forever. The apartment enveloped Elise and Derek in a cocoon of familiarity and tension. The weight of their decision hung in the air, a silent specter that neither acknowledged nor denied. The city lights outside cast long, dancing shadows across the room, mirroring the tumultuous emotions that played within Elise's chest. Derek poured 2 snifters of brandy, the amber liquid swirling enticingly as he handed one to Elise. The warmth of the alcohol was a welcome counterpoint to the chill of apprehension that threatened to descend upon her. She took a sip, the rich, oaky flavor grounding her in the moment, reminding her that she was awake, alive, and fully present in the choices she was making. "Let's not overthink this," Derek said, his voice low and soothing. "We're 2 consenting adults, Elise. What happens between us is our business, no one else's." Elise nodded, appreciating his attempt to alleviate the gravity of the situation. She knew he was right. Their private lives were their own. Yet, the knowledge that they were about to cross a boundary from which there was no return made her heart race with a mix of fear and exhilaration. As if sensing her inner turmoil, Derek reached out and took her hand, his fingers interlacing with hers in a gesture of support and solidarity. "We don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with," he assured her, his gaze steady and sincere. Elise offered him a small, grateful smile. "I know," she replied. "It's just, this is new territory for me. For both of us." Derek admitted, his thumb stroking the back of her hand in a comforting rhythm. "But I meant what I said earlier. My feelings for you, they're real, Elise, and they're strong enough to weather any storm that comes our way." His words, spoken with such conviction, served as a balm to her frayed nerves. Elise realized then that Derek was not just a young man caught up in the throes of infatuation. He was a mature individual who was willing to face the complexities of their situation with courage and grace. Feeling bolstered by his resolve, Elise set her brandy snifter down on the coffee table and stood, her body moving with a purpose that belied the fluttering in her stomach. "Let's dance," she said, extending her hand towards him. Derek's eyes lit up with a mixture of surprise and delight as he accepted her invitation, rising to his feet with the fluid grace of an athlete. They moved into the center of the room, the soft hum of a jazz melody emanating from the hidden speakers providing a sultry soundtrack to their impromptu dance. Elise stepped into Derek's embrace, her body aligning with his as they began to sway to the rhythm of the music. The contact was electric, a current that ran between them, charging the air with a palpable sense of longing. With each turn and dip, the boundaries of their relationship seemed to dissolve a little more, replaced by a connection that was both exhilarating and terrifying in its intensity. As the song came to an end, they found themselves locked in an embrace that spoke of more than just a shared dance. Their faces were mere inches apart, their breaths mingling in the space that separated them. Derek's hands rested lightly on the small of Elise's back, a silent promise of the passion that simmered just beneath the surface. Elise tilted her head up, her eyes meeting his in a silent exchange that needed no words. It was a moment of perfect understanding, a shared recognition of the desire that had been building between them since the moment they first stepped into the limousine. With a tenderness that belied the depth of his need, Derek lowered his lips to hers, the kiss a gentle exploration that quickly deepened into something far more urgent and demanding. Elise responded with fervor, her hands sliding up his chest to twine around his neck, pulling him closer as the world around them faded into insignificance. Their hands roamed, exploring the contours of each other's bodies with an intimacy that was both a revelation and a homecoming. Elise's robe slipped from her shoulders, pooling at her feet in a silken puddle, leaving her clad only in the lingerie that Derek had chosen for her. The appreciation in his gaze as he took in the sight of her was a powerful aphrodisiac, bolstering her confidence and stoking the fires of her desire. Derek's fingers traced the lace edges of her bra, his touch light and teasing, each caress sending waves of pleasure coursing through her veins. Elise arched into his touch, her own hands fumbling with the buttons of his shirt, eager to feel the warmth of his skin against hers. They moved as one, shedding their clothes with a sense of urgency that was tempered by the need to savor each moment, each revelation of flesh. The lingerie, once a symbol of hidden desires and forbidden allure, now seemed like a flimsy barrier that was destined to be cast aside. As they tumbled onto the soft expanse of the sofa, their bodies entwined in a dance as old as time, Elise knew that there was no turning back. The passion that had been simmering between them since that afternoon in her walk-in closet had ignited into a blaze that threatened to consume them both. Their lovemaking was a celebration of their shared vulnerability, a testament to the courage it took to lay bare one's deepest desires. Each kiss, each touch, each whispered endearment was a confirmation of the bond that they had forged in the fire of their mutual attraction. And when the final shuddering waves of their passion had ebbed away, leaving them spent and sated in each other's arms, Elise felt a sense of peace that she had not known in years. The night, once a canvas of uncertainty, was now painted with the vivid colors of their illicit love, a love that was as beautiful as it was dangerous. As they lay there, the city lights casting a soft glow over their entwined bodies, Elise realized that she had crossed a threshold from which there was no return. The future was a vast, uncharted territory, filled with potential pitfalls and heartache. But for now, in the quiet aftermath of their lovemaking, none of that mattered. For now, Elise was content to bask in the warmth of Derek's embrace, to revel in the knowledge that she was truly alive, truly seen by the man who held her heart in his hands. The consequences of their actions would come soon enough, but for this one perfect night, they would exist in a world of their own making, a world where love knew no bounds, and where the rules that governed their everyday lives held no sway. As twilight surrendered to the night's embrace, the apartment enveloped Elise and Derek in a realm of shadows and whispers. The city below, with its ceaseless clamor, seemed a distant dream, its lights a mere echo of the incandescent glow that now suffused their sanctuary of desire. Derek poured the brandy, the rich golden liquid a reflection of the warm undertones that played upon the walls. Each sip was a slow descent into a world where time itself seemed to pause, suspended by the delicate threads of their shared anticipation. "There's no need for doubt here." Derek's voice was a low murmur that seemed to resonate with the pulse of the city. "Tonight, we're just two souls, drawn together by a force that's beyond our control." Elise's reply was silent, her agreement conveyed through the locking of their gazes, a connection that needed no words. She felt as though she were standing at the edge of a precipice, the cool breeze of the unknown beckoning her to take a leap of faith into the abyss of her own desires. The music that filled the space was a gentle invitation, a melody that seemed to weave itself around them, coaxing their bodies into a wordless conversation of movement and touch. As they began to dance, Elise found herself swept away by the current of their mutual attraction, each step a careful exploration of the landscape they were eager to discover. Their dance was a delicate ballet, a measured give and take that spoke of a longing held in check by the thinnest of tethers. Derek's hands were firm, yet tender on her body, guiding her with a quiet confidence that belied the storm of emotions that raged just beneath the surface. Elise's own hands traced the lines of Derek's form, the heat of his skin a brand through the fabric of his shirt. With each touch, she could feel the walls they had built over the years crumbling away, revealing the raw, unfiltered truth of their connection. As the final notes of the song lingered in the air, they found themselves lost in a moment of stillness, the world outside their apartment fading into a canvas of forgotten dreams and future promises. Derek's gaze held hers, a silent question hanging between them, to which Elise gave the only answer her heart knew to be true. Their lips met in a kiss that was both a beginning and a culmination, a gentle collision of worlds that had been teetering on the edge of collision for far too long. It was a dance of tongues and breath, a slow, sultry exploration that left them both yearning for more. The sofa beckoned, its plush cushions a silent witness to the unfolding of their passion. As they sank onto its welcoming surface, the city lights outside seemed to dim, as if recognizing the need for privacy in the face of such an intimate revelation. Elise's robe fell away, the silk whispering secrets to the air as it pooled at her feet. The lingerie Derek had chosen for her was a revelation, the crimson fabric a bold declaration of the fire that now threatened to consume them both. Derek's fingers were deft, his touch a gentle flame that ignited a trail of goosebumps in their wake. Each piece of clothing that was removed was a petal falling from a bloom, revealing the delicate promise of the flower within. Their bodies came together in a union that was both a homecoming and a journey into the unknown. The air was thick with the scent of their desire, a heady perfume that spoke of ancient forests and hidden springs, of dawn's first light caressing the peaks of mountains that had yet to be explored. The rhythm of their lovemaking was a symphony composed by the universe itself, each movement a note that built upon the last, creating a melody that was as timeless as it was profound. Elise felt herself being swept away by the tide of her emotions, her body moving in harmony with Derek's, their hearts beating in unison as they climbed the heights of their shared passion. The pleasure that washed over them was akin to the first drops of rain on parched earth, a reawakening of senses that had been lying dormant, waiting for this very moment to burst forth in a dazzling display of color and life. As they lay entwined in the aftermath, the reality of their situation began to permeate the haze of their ecstasy. The future was a vast ocean, its depths uncharted and filled with potential perils. Yet, as they clung to each other, the warmth of their bodies a comfort against the uncertainty that awaited them, They found solace in the knowledge that they had navigated the initial waves of their desire and emerged stronger, more connected than ever before. The night's embrace was a tender cocoon that held them close, promising no judgment, no consequences, only the pure, unadulterated joy of a love that had been both unexpected and wholly irresistible. In the wake of their passion, Elise and Derek lay entwined, the city's ceaseless hum a distant counterpoint to the symphony of their own heartbeats. The apartment, once a mere stage for their daily routines, had been transformed into a sacred sanctuary, a hidden alcove where the boundaries of their relationship had been rewritten in the language of touch and taste. For a time, they were content to simply exist in the silence, their bodies a tangle of limbs, their breaths slowly sinking with the rhythm of their shared calm. It was Derek who finally broke the stillness, his voice a soft rumble against the backdrop of the night. "Elise," he began, his fingers tracing idle patterns on her bare shoulder. "What we've just done, it changes everything, doesn't it?" Elise turned to meet his gaze, her own eyes reflecting a complex tapestry of emotions. "Yes," she admitted, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. "There's no going back to the way things were." They spoke in hushed tones, their conversation a delicate dance of acknowledgement and uncertainty. They grappled with the implications of their actions, the potential fallout, and the unspoken question that hovered in the air between them. Where did they go from here? Derek was the first to voice the fears that gnawed at them both. "I don't want this to ruin what we have, the family dynamics, the respect we've built over the years. I couldn't bear to hurt you or anyone else involved." Elise reached out to cup his cheek, the pad of her thumb brushing against the stubble that darkened his jaw. "We're in this together, Derek. Whatever happens next, we'll face it as a team. I don't have all the answers, but I do know that I don't regret what's happened between us." Their talk was a balm to their souls, a necessary exploration of the emotional landscape they now navigated. It was a conversation filled with honesty and vulnerability, a raw and unfiltered exchange that brought them closer than ever before. As they talked, the tension that had been building throughout the evening began to ebb away, replaced by a sense of peace and acceptance. They were two adults who had chosen to follow their hearts, despite the potential for scandal and heartache. And in that choice, they found a strength that came from knowing they were not alone in their desires. The night wore on, their conversation flowing naturally from the mundane to the profound. Yet, as the minutes slipped by, Elise could feel the embers of her desire beginning to stir once more. It was a hunger that had been awakened by their earlier lovemaking, a yearning that was as much about emotional connection as it was about physical need. She could see the same desire reflected in Derek's eyes, a spark that grew brighter with each passing moment. Without speaking, they moved towards one another, their bodies drawn together by the irresistible force of their mutual attraction. This time, their lovemaking was a slow, languid exploration, a leisurely feast that was both a celebration and a deepening of their bond. Derek worshipped Elise's body with a reverence that left her breathless, his hands and mouth mapping the contours of her form with an artist's precision. Elise returned his attentions with equal fervor, her own hands and lips discovering the hidden valleys and peaks of his physique. There was a sweetness to their coupling, a tenderness that spoke of a love that was both new and as old as time itself. As they climbed the heights of passion once more, their movements were a delicate ballet, each touch, each kiss, a promise whispered in the silent language of the soul. They moved together with a grace that belied the intensity of their emotions, their bodies perfectly attuned to the rhythm of their shared desire. Their second union was a testament to the depth of their connection, a mingling of spirits that transcended the physical realm. It was a joining that spoke of trust and vulnerability, of a love that was strong enough to weather the storms that lay ahead. When they finally reached the pinnacle of their pleasure, it was a moment of transcendent beauty, a crescendo that echoed through the very core of their being. They clung to one another as the waves of their release washed over them, their bodies slick with the sweat of their exertions, their hearts beating in a wild, unchoreographed dance. In the aftermath, they lay in a quiet embrace, the world outside their apartment a distant memory. They had crossed a threshold from which there was no return, their lives irrevocably intertwined by the choices they had made. As sleep began to beckon, Elise realized that the night had changed her in ways she was only beginning to understand. She had opened herself up to the possibility of love, despite the risks, and in doing so had discovered a part of herself that she had long thought lost. With Derek's arms wrapped securely around her, Elise allowed herself to drift off into the realm of dreams, her heart filled with a sense of hope and anticipation. The future was a vast, uncharted expanse, but whatever it held, they would face it together, bound by the invisible threads of their shared journey.